ParishSoft, Connecting People and the Church. ParishSoft's Safe Environment program utilizes the data in your diocese's centralized database, allowing you to securely share, store, and retrieve data for purposes of safe environment. SEP uses two web-based applications to manage your safe environment data: the Connect Now Family Suite and the Safe Environment Program Manager. In this training video, we will look at how to add paid staff and volunteers to Connect Now Family Suite for your purposes of safe environment. Safe environment data, such as background screening, status completion of awareness training, and completion of the sex abuse policy form, is posted to an individual's record. This means that the person's basic record has to be in the database before screening, training, and policy information can be entered. Since the centralized database receives name, address, and other information from many users, this means that in many cases the basic record information may already exist in your database, and the SEP data can be posted to the person's record immediately. But in some instances, the local level coordinator will need to create a record and enter this basic information before the SEP data can be posted. The Connect Now program is utilized to accomplish this task of adding individuals whose records do not already exist within the system. The Connect Now program allows the administration level user to manage the staff assignments for his or her specific organization through a secure online website. The user has the ability to add new staff and volunteer records through this interface and assign them the appropriate position for screening purposes. The user will also have the option to edit an existing staff or volunteer record if information for this individual changes. For example, a phone number, address, or email changes, or this person leaves his or her current position. You will need a username and password in order to log in to the Connect Now and Safe Environment Program Manager websites. This will be provided to you by the Diocesan Safe Environment Office. Please make sure you keep your login and password in a secure place. You can log in to the Connect Now program using any website. The Wheeling Charleston website for Connect Now Family Suite is connectnow.parishsoft.com/Wheeling Charleston. When you are emailed your username and password for the program, you will also be mailed the URL for the program as well. Your access rights will control what modules you see in the Connect Now database. To log into the program, open any web browser and enter the username and password that you have been given. After typing them, click Login. As the program opens, you'll be brought into Connect Now Family Suite. You will see three tabs across the top: Home, Family Directory, and Administration. And if for any reason you have other rights within the program or you manage other things within the database, you may see additional program modules. But all local level coordinators will see at least these three tabs. Again, the Home tab, Family Directory, and Administration. The very first thing that you need to do when verifying your safe environment or verifying that you have information in the Connect Now Family Suite is everyone must exist in your school or organization before you can add information for purposes of safe environment. The diocese has done a data conversion, so there is some data that's been preloaded, so some historical data already exists in your database. You are going to first search for the person that you need to add safe environment information to see that they have been added to your school or organization. You can search for a person in a number of ways. The program allows to have what's called a fuzzy search or a contained search, and that is done here in this top bar. You can use the Rolodex features to click on a letter and quickly jump to that letter in the database in your records. You can also use a filter icon over here. I'm going to clear this other filter first. I'm going to come down to this filter icon, and I also can search using this. And this is an exact search, so I can type a person's last name, and it's going to return only persons with the last name of Baker when I click Apply. So I found Susan Baker. To clear my search, I just click the Clear Filter fields, or I click this little filter icon with the red X. The fuzzy search is a contain search, as I indicated before, which means it's going to look for records that contain the information that I type up here. By default, it is going to search on the family name, but I can also search on additional information. So I'm going to add the address as an initial piece of information to it by just simply checking the address field. Now, if I'm going to search for the last name of Ash, type the name Ash in and click Enter. You'll notice it returned a family with the last name of Ash, but then a whole bunch of other families that did not have the last name of Ash. But if I come over here, I'll notice that I have some families that live on Ash Street because I chose the address, and I also have addresses that contain Ash. So Washington has ASH in it. So the contain search is going to be a much broader search. So again, 3 ways to search. Fuzzy search. You can use the Rolodex feature, scroll through the records, or you can come in here and search with the filter icon, typing a person's last name, first initial, and be able to locate their record. So the very first thing I wanted to do was search to see if a family exists in my database. So I have a new volunteer or perhaps a new staff member with the last name of Stanton. So I'm going to type it in my fuzzy search and see if it returns any information. It's telling me that no, I do not have any record with the last name of Stanton in my search. So I know that I need to add this record to my database because it does not exist. I'm going to go ahead and clear my search results. Then, in order to add this record into my database, I'm going to go click Add New Family button right here. When I click the Add New Family button, a new window pops up, and it's a Find Family window, and it's going to ask me to search again. However, this time it is having me search the entire diocesan database, because perhaps while Stanton is not in my database, perhaps they might be in a parish database someplace else, and I would be able to bring them in. So I am going to search for Stanton again, and oops, and I'll type the name right. Type the last name of Stanton, and if it was a very common last name, I might go ahead and put in a first initial because I want to narrow it down. So if I was searching for Smith, I might want to put the first initial of W for William. But remember, when you're searching, always start with less. Less is better because we want to return the most results possible to see if that record exists in my database. Once I've typed in the information I want to search for, I click Search, and the system will return the information that it has found. It's returned 25 records. I can either use my little numbers at the bottom of the screen to scroll back and forth between the pages to see if the record is I wanted, or if I wanted to narrow down because I had pages of records, I could type the first initial in here and narrow my search down and hit it again and see. The record that I'm looking for is Chase Stanton, and the only Stanton I see here is Christine. So I know that it's okay that this person doesn't exist, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new family record for them. So I click Add New Family, and it opens up a screen for which I can add family information or member information for this person. It automatically fills in some information based on my search criteria. Because I searched on the first name with the first letter of C, it filled that in, and because I had a last name of Stanton, that information is already there for me. On this screen, all of the fields with the red asterisks are required information. The other fields are optional information for you. I'm going to start by completing the information. Now, if Chase wasn't a Mr., I would choose, maybe it was a female, and I could choose that it was Mrs., but in this case it's not. So I'm going to leave the default Mr. When I enter a record into the system, in each family, one person needs to be coded as either head, husband, or wife. And if you're adding only a single person, always are going to add that this person is their head of their household. Select the correct gender. What is their family group? You are going to choose active. And because you're entering information for a school, you are going to uncheck the registration status, because this individual is not registered to your school. The concept of registration status applies to our parish users, and so individuals are registered at a parish. Our families are registered at a parish, but they are not registered at a school in Connect Now. So again, when you're adding new records into your database, bring them in with a registration status unchecked so that they come in as unregistered. We're going to move over to the third column and enter the address information. You're going to enter, again, you have to require is an address line 1. So I'm going to say what my street address is, and you'll notice that there's no, the next thing that comes down here is a second address line. If I had one, I could enter it. But then it goes to a postal code. And that is because our system has the ability to check a postal database for you. I type the postal code, click Tab on my key, and it automatically fills in my city, state, zip, my city and country automatically in here. If this postal code happened to be for a city that shared multiple cities, I would be able to come down and click the down arrow on the city and choose a different city, because sometimes we have cities that share a same zip code, and the system allows you to do that. You can indicate what type of an address this person's is. Is it their home? Is it a mailing address or other? For the most part, you'll probably be using home or mailing. The last thing that you're going to do is click the autofill family names. When I do that, it automatically is going to fill in this information on these fields below based on the information that I have already entered. Now, if I happen to be entering, had a husband and a wife that I needed to get entered in here because perhaps they're both volunteering, I'd want to click over here, add another member first, so that I could add the second member or the spouse for this record. And in this case, I'm going to do that. So I have Mrs. And in this particular case, I'm going to type the last name. You'll notice that the last name information wasn't filled out in here. I'm going to choose Samantha is the wife of Chase. I'm going to make her type be wife, and you'll notice that the system automatically knew that if it's his wife, her gender must be female. So now when I come over here to the autofill names and click on it, because I've entered a husband and wife, the system is going to be smart enough to know that I need to join the name. So it filled in the last name based on the last name information. You put the first name of both the husband and wife. It created a formal mailing salutation, an informal, etc. You certainly can come in here and change this information. If you wanted it, you could edit it, or you simply could overtype all of the information. When I'm done entering this information, I have 3 options, or 4 options to what to do with this record. I can cancel this record because I didn't really mean to enter it, which is probably not the case, but in some cases you may discover that I need to cancel it, so of course cancel it. The other options that you have across the bottom are, we'll start from the back, save and finish, which means I'm done. I had 1 record to enter. I click save, finish. It takes me back out of this entry form. I can click save and edit, and it will allow me to edit this record further if I wanted to add additional information, perhaps like a marital status, some other information. Or I could click Save and New, and it would bring me back in and allow me to search and add for yet another person. So if I had a stack of forms to be entered or some new volunteers, I would probably be using Save and New, so I could just continue to add those family records into my system so that I could start tracking for purposes of safe environment. I'm going to go ahead and choose Save and Finish because I'm done with this record. Whenever I save a record and I've added a new record with an address, system goes out and checks it against, again, our postal database. This time it's looking at the address information as well as looking at the zip code information to complete it. It will suggest if it finds a better address. You have the option to use this address by clicking Use Suggested Address or use the address as entered. The postal database will do things like add directional signals on directional things on your address like north, south, east, west. Also put the suffixes of the address, street, drive, avenue. And in my case, it added the +4. It's usually a good idea if it suggests a better address to go ahead and use the suggested address because you might be using this for mailing purposes or to contact, and always good to have the best postal address possible. However, if it suggests something that you know is not correct, just go ahead and click Use the Entered Address. I'm going to use the suggested address because it's just added my +4. So now, if I were to search for Stanton in my database, we'll now see that Chase and Samantha Stanton are there. I'm going to clear that result. But we also have now another option. I need to add another new family, and I've already searched and determined they're not in my database. And the last name of this first family is Gola, and I'm going to search for that. And I need to add the Gola family, and yep, it looks like they're there. This is the family. They're actually registered at the parish, but they are now volunteering in school, so I need to bring them in so that I can have track safe environment for them at the school level as well. So when that happens, when I do this search and I find the record that I want, I just put the radio button to the right of their name, left of their name, I'm sorry, to select it. And then I have an option of what to do with this family. I'm going to move this family, and I can bring them in as unregistered or registered. But as a school, since everyone in my school organization should be unregistered, I'm always going to select unregistered in this case. If I chose registered, it would unregister them at the parish and register them at the school. So we want to be careful on this at the school level that we bring in all of our family members as, all of our families as unregistered. So I'm going to click the unregistered. The system says, do we want to move that family over to my selected organization, which is the school? And I'm going to go say, okay. Now a copy of that record still exists in the parish, and now I have a copy of that same record in my database. Still the same record in the centralized database, but now it shows up in both places. So if I do my search here, I now am going to find that the Golas have come into mine. So I have both of these individuals in my system now, or in my database. Now that I have them in here, I'm ready to go in and give them an assignment record. So my first step in adding an individual is getting them into my school or organization's database, making sure that we have their name, address, information. The second step I need to do is I go to the Administration tab and Manage Staff. And for our purposes, staff means paid and volunteer. And this is where I'm going to add their staff assignment. This is the piece of the piece of the puzzle that will allow you to be able to track their safe environment. We use positions in the Safe Environment Program to determine what kind of screening. So based on the position this person has, will determine the types of screenings that they need to have. In Wheeling-Charleston, you have two basic screening categories. You have a screening category for general volunteers and staff, and then you have one for clergy, DREs, principals, and teachers. The basic difference between these two categories is the background screening requirement. Background screening requirement renewal period is less for teachers, DREs, principals than it is for a general volunteer. So again, your position, when we're doing this, the position is the important piece. Earlier I mentioned that we did a data conversion of historical data. So your database is already going to have some historical data preloaded. In some cases, that data we knew what their position was because the historical data had that information noted. But in many cases, that information was unknown, so those records came in marked SEP TBD, or Safe Environment to be Determined. So these are records that you'll be able to go in and edit and change and update the position to their correct position. But before we do that, I want to show you how to add a new person, a new assignment record for the family or the member that you just added into your system. To do that, you're going to come down here on the toolbar icon and click the plus sign, which is the Add New Staff. Again, it's going to ask us to search for that staff person. It wants us to look to make sure we're going to pull in the right person. And in this case, I am going to Stanton. I'm going to search for the last name of Stanton, which is the couple that I added. And since there's 39 records, I'm going to narrow down my search by putting a first initial. And now I see there is Chase Stanton, who I entered. There's his address. So I'm confident that's the right one. I can even scroll over and see that he's in my organization. I click the radio button there next to his name, and I'm going to click Accept. This Add New Staff button should not be used. That will open up a window where it allows you to type in information. You always want to select them from the list and click the Accept button. When I do that, I get a pop-up that tells me that it's been successfully added. I just click OK to that message, and it brings me up to a screen where I can begin editing and adding information for this assignment record. Because the Connect Now program staff management page is also used to give access rights to the actual Connect Now program, anyone we add as a staff or volunteer is going to require a username and an email address in here. In the school, you are not going to be giving access to the Connect Now data to anyone. They won't be logging into the data. So when you add this information, you're still going to go ahead and add a username. Before we start, we always have to click Edit Details. We recommend making the username be first initial, last name. So C. Stanton. And it's not case sensitive, but you can type that, and then it's going to need an email address. We recommend, first step is that you are going to put your email address in here. Save the record. And what happens is when you enter your email address and save it, because this portion of the module also provides access, it generates an email that goes to whatever email address is in here and sends them a username and a temporary password in a URL to log into the program. Well, because this person doesn't need to log into the program, we want you to first put your email address in there so the initial email is sent to you, then come back in here, click Edit Details, and go ahead and put that person's email address in there. And then we can proceed on. So we're going to start at the Assignments tab, add their username and an email address. Then we're going to go to the Positions. And as I said earlier, Positions is the key piece in our program. It is the position that is going to determine what their trainings are. Now, if this was a new staff person, perhaps this was a new teacher or something, I can come down here, scroll through the list of positions that are down here and select it. So if Chase was a teacher, I can scroll down till I get to teachers. And I can choose teacher, and I can also choose level of teacher. So if this was an elementary school and I wanted to choose elementary, I could. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now you'll notice that it says Add Teacher Elementary to Chase's position. When he was created, he had a position of unknown. We want to be able to eliminate that unknown position because now we know he has a position. In order to do that, we have to make Teacher B his primary position. And the primary position is the one that is listed at the top. So I simply just click on Teacher Elementary, drag it up to the top, and now I uncheck Unknown. So I have that information. By adding this and having him show up as Teacher Elementary, the Safe Environment program will automatically know what screenings this person needs. So I've gone ahead, I've entered a username and email address, which is required. I've entered their position. I need to do nothing on the access rights because I'm not going to give them access to the program at all. So I click Save and Close. And I've now entered this information in for Chase, and if I were to I can use my little Rolodex here, click S. And we'll go to the last page. And there you go. You see Mr. Chase Stanton is an elementary teacher. Now, as I said before, you have several people that came in as SEP to be determined. And if you know for a fact that what Mark Stanley is, or his position is, you want to go in and clean this up. So I'm going to click on his name to open him, and I'm going to start with his assignment record. Again, because this data was converted, there were no usernames or email address in the prior data. So I have to first start by clicking Edit Details and giving this person a username. And again, I'm going to put my email address in here because I do not want this person to receive the initial email. I'm going to save it so that I receive the initial login email, which I can then later delete. I'm going to click back to Edit, and then I'm going to put the email address that I do have for this person. In. I'm then going to proceed to the positions, and I can scroll down and find what this person's position is. So perhaps this Mark is, we'll say, what is Mark? Mark's a teacher as well, perhaps. But Mark is a high school teacher. So I've now added, so Mark has now two things, teacher, high school, and safe environment to be determined because he has historical data in that we did not know. I'm going to change and make this be his primary position. At this point, I can uncheck the SEP to be determined if I want. If I still want to be able to see the historical data in the other program, the program manager, I can leave this checked for now. Either way, this will allow to see what came in on his and his converted data and what might be needing in his high school. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck it. I don't need to have that information in. So now I have updated Mark, and I'm going to say save and close. And now if I were to search for Mark Stanley, we'll see that his position has been updated in the system. So now he's looking at teacher high school. So as your staff grows, obviously so will your list. So to easily look up somebody that you might have to edit or make a change to, you simply are going to click the filter icon, just like you did on the family directory. Search for that person's name. Click Apply, and it's going to search for you and bring up that record. To clear the filter, you'll notice there's a new icon next to it that's got a little X. If I click on that, it will clear the filter and return all of the results. Now, if I find that there's somebody that came in from the historical data that is no longer associated with the organization, they're no longer volunteering, they no longer are in our employ, and perhaps that's right here in Alan Douglas, I'm going to go ahead and open up that person's record. Again, I'm going to click Edit Details. And in this case, if Douglas Allen left our employ a while back, I'm going to end date his assignment. So I'm going to come up here and choose the date icon, and I can scroll and select the date. I certainly could say it was as of today, but if I know what date he left our employ, so we're going to say his last day was June 3rd in 2013. I can end date this record with an end date. I do have to go to his assignments because the system is going to require that there be a username in here and an email before it will let me save the record. Because anything, as if you recall, anything with a red asterisk is required information. So now I can save this information. And now it's given me and told me that the username is not unique. So I have to have a unique username, so I have to click OK, and I'm going to come back in. So I might have to do dallen1. Save and close. And there you go. I was able to end date his assignment, and you'll notice I no longer see him up here because I have end dated his assignment record. So he no longer shows up on my list. Now, if he has gone to go to work for someplace else, he's still in the database, and someone else can pull them into their organization, and if they have the same position, they'll be able to pull in and see their historical background screening information. So that's it. In Connect Now Family Suite, we have to add, first of all, add the family or member into the system and then give them an assignment right. So to review, from the Family Directory tab, I first need to search for the family to see if they exist in my database. So I'll search again, last name Gola. If the family does exist, I can go right to the Administration Manage Staff and add that person in as a staff person. If I search for somebody and they do not exist in my database, so say there was another Tank and I was looking for Cindy Tank and she does not exist here, I want to go ahead and click the Add New Family, which brings up the screen to search the diocesan database for a Cindy. It did not find a Cindy Tank, so I can go ahead and click here at this point. I could click Add New Family, and I could add her record into the system. I'm not going to go through that right now. It's just a review. I'm going to cancel out. Once I've added the record in there, again, I can come to the Administration tab, Manage Staff. Then I can add the record to the person that I was just added on the other side, add their assignment record and their position in the system. If someone has come in and or someone has left my employ, again, I'm going to go in, pull up that information. So we're going to pull up and look for Stanton. If Chase is no longer in my employ or no longer volunteering in my organization, I can come in and end date their assignment and remove them from my Managed Staff list. That's it, those two simple steps. If you have any further questions about how to add staff or what to do as far as positions or information, please do contact the Office of Safe Environment. And thank you for your time.